Hey friends, I'm Daniel Nesbitt and welcome back to Designing a Revival Typeface. In the last episode, we covered a good bit of ground on our diagonal letters, getting the upper and lowercase v and w out of the way. And while that was only a small handful of characters, I'm hoping that we can use that momentum from the last episode in today's episode to maybe get through some more diagonal characters and really get this typeface humming along. So let's jump in to Glyphs. And I really don't have too much of a game plan here today, to be honest. But one thing I did want to tackle was actually the M here. And the reason that I wanted to do that is I think there could be some commonalities here with the H and the V. I know we talked a little bit about some letters in this typeface seem to be a bit of a copy and paste, I guess, for lack of better words. You know, reusing different elements and not really making too many adjustments to it. I don't think that's entirely the case with how the M was designed and created here. But at the very least, I think we've got kind of enough going on with the uppercase V here, and even probably not even the H, probably the I. I think we can make something like that work to assemble our M. So one thing I'm going to do is we're going to disable automatic alignment here, so that way I can move this around. And then the other thing that I'm going to do is we're going to grab the uppercase I. We'll disable the movement on that as well, so we can go through and get that aligned there. Now, truth be told, I did play around with this a little bit at one point, an episode that actually didn't entirely work out. As I probably have noted in the previous episode, my recording equipment has changed a little bit, so kind of with that, I was attempting to try a few different settings and ended up losing an episode where we were going to touch a little bit more on the M and what to do with that. But something that I'm going to carry over from that is that I thought this M felt a little too narrow. And I'm not exactly sure that that I might kind of go to the extreme that I did in that lost episode, but I do want to keep that in mind as I'm designing this here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to try and get this about as even as we can here. And what I mean by that is that we're going to go and just get some of these points lined up a little bit better. So I'm just kind of getting these little nooks here in these corners so that they are even across. Looks like that will take care of that. And it's not that I necessarily would want to leave this in this state. We'll just kind of go ahead and decompose everything. But I think this is probably a good place to start. So this is a little bit wider. On my file here, this is 20 units wider. But I think that'll actually work out okay. So again, kind of similar to the, I guess the W and the V, we're going to go and probably take a look at these corners up here. And I might just kind of bump those into just to kind of lighten up those spots a little bit. So we're just going to do 10 units to start, but I kind of want a similar vibe here as down here. Obviously this part here is kind of a riff directly off the V, so I'm not too worried about that. And then as far as the weight of this goes, I suppose one thing I could consider here, not the B, but the N. Looks like I did do 70 on this. I know we had the alternate version where I did 65. You know, I suppose I could maybe play that up just a little bit. I don't know how much 5 units is really going to make a difference or not here, but I suppose for the sake of having some kind of difference there, maybe we do something like that. It is a low contrast too, which kind of makes this a challenge a little bit. So I think we'll kind of aim for something like that. And at least from this point, it doesn't look too terrible. What we could do is maybe just go back, and I think for now I'm just going to focus on the uppercase letters. But we can throw this into Wordomat. Get the right menu here. I'm going to say, I could say use the selected glyphs. It will be all caps anyway, because that's what I'm selecting, but we'll do this. Let Wordomat kind of run its magic here a little bit. And then just kind of as I zoom out, maybe to something like that. We can kind of take a look here. So the tough part with things like the M is, you know, it's not like an O or an H. Effectively, we've got, you know, 4 stems that we're trying to manage, and then of those, you've got 3 points where they kind of connect together. So I'm just taking that into account if I need to maybe go through and take some weight out or make adjustments. That's kind of where we're at right now. So we're going to kind of see what little tweaks and adjustments do. I don't want to try and make any massive wholesale changes here, but I just want this to maybe feel a little bit more even. And then we'll go back, just go to like 48 point or something. Actually maybe 36 points. It's kind of been a, do I go 24? Go a little bit smaller. But effectively, I'm just trying to make this so that it doesn't feel like it's super overwhelming or anything like that. I think I have kind of noticed it does stand out a little bit in the printed specimen that I have, so I'm also keeping that in mind as well. But I am kind of debating actually if it still feels a little too heavy. So maybe what we'll do is something like this. So we'll just kind of take the weight out, go back to 24 point. And because I'm a glasses wearer, I have, I guess, a perk here that I can kind of look over the top of my glasses a little bit. That's effectively what I'm doing. It probably looks really goofy on video, but it's kind of a cheeky way to kind of see where I'm at with the weight on this. One other thing I could do, I could look down on my blurry preview here, because it still feels a touch heavy, but I'm kind of wondering if it's maybe just these corners that are adding that weight. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's something like this. One other thing I could do, doesn't really make a word, but you can kind of play around with this some and see where this goes a little bit. Let's see, I also know, maybe go in 5 units there. See if that kind of helps us out a little bit. It is kind of tricky to get right, so I don't have any qualms about playing around with this, and truth be told, I could always go back and change my mind and maybe add a little bit more weight to things or something like that. I think we're kind of maybe somewhat there. Let's see, zoom out. I do wish there was kind of a zoom out all the way kind of thing here. I was actually just kind of curious as I was digging around on that. Turns out there's not, but I think that's a little bit better. It doesn't feel quite as overwhelming at this size, so I think for now I may just kind of let that roll. I'm not sure that I want to stick around too much on that. I think that'll be okay. So that pretty much takes care of the M. I think the width was okay too. I was kind of widening it out a little bit too. I don't want to get too far away from that, but I think that'll be okay. So with that out of the way, I am kind of jumping around a little bit, but let's see here. I think we could probably make quick work of the letter A. And again, for something like this, this kind of gets back to where we were working at the beginning of this, where we could maybe kind of flip a letter upside down and make that work. One thing I will acknowledge here too is my scan on this side got a little kind of blurry there, and this just mostly had to do with the page where the binding was. I didn't want to squish it too much for the sake of a scan, so I'm kind of owning that that's not a super great scan, but I think it gets us at least in the ballpark, which is okay. We can kind of quickly work out an A there. Get rid of the image, and then for the A, I usually just use the side bearings of the letter V, so I won't have kerning here, so this looks probably a little bit rough, but I think when I back up, it looks pretty decent. I don't think there's really too much else I need to worry about on that. Again, like, kerning is just going to take care of so much of this. I suppose if I wrote a word, maybe like handle, no, that doesn't look too bad. Again, we're just kind of flipping some pieces around and more or less just assembling a letter from things we've already designed, so there isn't too much to focus on there. On that same subject too, I do kind of wonder if the uppercase J might have a similar... Oops, we don't want to rotate, we just want to move. But I'm kind of wondering if a J might have a similar thing here. And I've got my eye on the uppercase U to kind of help us out with this. There's probably a decent chance that it's condensed some. Just kind of move this into position. Yeah, so there's going to be a little bit of editing, but I think that's okay. And I think... How do I want to handle this here? I may just go through and delete these. I'm holding down the Option key just to open the shape back up here. I think what I want to do, we're just gonna... Actually, let's even just take those out too. I think what I want to do is just maybe get that roughly centered. I think these are probably going to come down a little bit too. And then what we'll do is... actually what we'll do is we'll do an open corner, but I'm going to manually draw an open corner. So if we do something about like that, and basically the idea here is I at least get my angle there. Then if we go back, we can hold down the Option key again and put in all of these pieces, and then go ahead and hit the Enter key there. For this side, it's pretty easy because we can just kind of work out all of those right angles, and I know I have this in a good place too because it's just mimicking the U. For these here, we're actually just going to grab the whole thing and just get these positioned. Looks like I'll have to kind of do these separately too, so it kind of snaps into place. But then that means that these are all set to go. That looks pretty good. And then from here, I think it's just going to be a matter of going through and making this kind of smooth. So now that we've got the general shape, we'll just kind of back up here. I think another thing I'm actually going to do is just put a copy of the J off to the side here so we can kind of pay attention to a filled-in copy while we go. But again, a lot of this is going to be like before. We're just kind of making sure this is roughly a 45-degree angle. If you want to get technical, you could make sure that these two variables line up. Right now, it's if this imaginary square here is a 45-degree angle here, and you know, right now it's 37 and it's 44 units. You know, that's okay. I don't know. I probably could bump that back a little bit more, 44 or 39. That one's about 10 units apart, but I think that's okay for now. As far as this other side goes, you know, one other thing I actually could pull in potentially is kind of how the C curved up here. And this is in part kind of why I was opening this corner up, because it's easier to kind of get this so it feels like a 90-degree angle that it's terminating on, which is what we want here. But the other thing that I'm looking at too is, you know, what kind of taper does this have as it kind of comes off here? So maybe there's something about like that. It still feels too wide. So yeah, it gets down to like 60. It gets down to, what was that, about 60? Well, eventually gets down to 61, but it feels like even this 2-unit thing here, it kind of feels like it's flaring out too much, I guess is what I'm getting after. But maybe something like that. One other thing. Could take a look at maybe is kind of adjusting this around so it just feels a little bit more rounder. Again, the other thing we could do too is bring in Super Tool. Kind of bring the volume down a little bit. And I always kind of get a little bit of a chuckle when I'm not too far off on Super Tool. But who knows, maybe we do something like that that actually kind of gets things really close. Again, I'm not like super worried about those being a perfect 45, but I guess I don't have enough room for jack there, but maybe we can do something like that. It's kind of tough to think of J words with everything I have. Jaguar, there we go. I'm kind of wondering maybe something like that, and then I'm just kind of pulling the spacing there. It looks serviceable is probably the phrase that I have for it. Unlike the M, I don't think I have to fuss around too much with this because it mostly is a single stroke character, so I think as long as it looks about right, we should be okay. So I think we can kind of call the K good to go on that. One other one, actually, since we're kind of at the beginning of the, or towards the beginning of the alphabet, I also want to take a look at that B too. What's interesting is we did the P and the R. Of course, I just have a natural tendency to go that way as I'm laying this out, but for some reason we never went back and did the capital B. Don't ask me what I was thinking when we went that route, but again, this is going to be kind of difficult because it is a little bit blurry, but I think we'll make do here. And then for this, just disable the component alignment. For the P, I think we can kind of make this work a little bit. I don't know how much it will, but we'll give it a shot. I'm a little more optimistic for this working on the bottom. You can kind of see that it actually fits somewhat well, which I'm pleasantly surprised by. But what we will do, just for the sake of making this easier, we'll just go ahead and lengthen that out a little bit. So as far as the top goes then, this is what we'll need to figure out. So that is a width of 63 3. And maybe what I do here, I'll just kind of bring this up. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to kind of bring a couple of these elements in a little bit, because one thing I'm also keeping in mind is that we're going to try and reduce some of the space here. So this is kind of a similar thing what we had to the M, where we don't want to have kind of a big traffic jam with kind of the letter weight there. So I'm gonna let the scan kind of inform that a little bit. At the very least, this kind of gets us into the ballpark of where I want to be. But then what we'll need to do is go and make some adjustments here. Kind of go from there. Actually, one other thing. So I could arguably bump this out a little bit more. Maybe I'll give it 5 points, but we don't want these two to be perfectly vertically lined up. That's kind of what I'm after with that. And then let's see here, that's 117 units and 119. If I go one more, we're at 118, which is perfect. And then these two will add up to the weight that we're after, 63 units. So that should be okay. It's just going to look a little awkward there for now. Personally, I'm not a fan of merging these two shapes together. I just think it's easier to kind of grab the whole thing and just have them overlap and create visually one solid stroke there. I know people kind of go about that in a couple different ways. But one other thing that we're going to do, because it's been a while since we've used it, is the Fit Curve tool. We were kind of using this a little bit. But maybe we can kind of get something working here a little bit. At least to kind of help me clean this up a little bit, and we'll kind of tweak and adjust from here. So yeah, maybe something like that. I think we can actually bring this one out just a little bit. Well, a little bit ended up being a lot. Maybe something like that. It doesn't look terrible, to be honest. And then we'll just throw some side bearings on there real quick. I think that kind of helps that out. And then we do, well, peanut butter was the first word that came to mind, all uppercase, but I think if we kind of jump back a little bit, I think that looks pretty good. It's not jumping out to me too much. And again, not like the letter B here was really doing anything super wild. I may actually bump that back in a little bit more too, because I'm thinking especially at smaller sizes, which I suppose gets tough to see on a YouTube video, but I just don't want it to feel like at some point it feels like those two bowls are the same size or the same width. I do like that it kind of has a little bit of offset, so I think we'll roll with that, and I think we're actually getting pretty close to finish with some of these letters, which is actually pretty great. I think then to kind of wrap things up a little bit, we may leave the K and the X for another episode here, but I think maybe what we'll do is take a look at the Y to kind of wrap things up. And the reason that I'm looking at the Y in both upper and lower case is I think we can kind of get away with using the V here to kind of help us out a little bit. I'm not sure if there's anything else that would really give us a hand on this. We'll just go ahead and lock that. We'll throw a lowercase v in. And go get the automatic alignment disabled. Sometimes when I'm doing a lowercase y, I might go and look if I have like the G, maybe the J kind of helps. I suppose we could throw it in there and see what happens. Worst case scenario is that it absolutely doesn't work at all, but I like being able to kind of pick elements off of other things and maybe reuse that a little bit, so we'll see where that goes. It may end up not working at all, but we'll go with that. And then for the Y, looks like this kind of gets nudged in a little bit more. So this point here is going to be kind of, I guess, the pivot point as it circles down. And then this is where I get to kind of make some decisions here, because if we bring the tail of the J in, this isn't going to fit 100%, which is loosely what I expected would happen. I think what we'll do is we'll kind of maybe do something like that. So it kind of got something like this going on. Maybe it kind of widens out a little bit too, tough to say. But we're going to open this shape up. We're going to open this up. And basically just kind of merge all this in. Grab everybody there. And we'll just kind of cycle it over. Both did not snap, but we were also one off here too, so that is okay. So that gets us our shape back, which is good. And I think what I'm going to try, we'll see if Glyphs did play along, that's pretty awesome, is we're going to get rid of this lower piece there and just use these upper nodes as kind of our pivot point for the curve there. And then I think what we can do is maybe we'll do open corner here. We'll see how far we can kind of push this, but I think effectively we want something kind of like that. The nice part with this kind of curve or tail is I can maybe take a little bit more liberty in kind of moving these shapes around a little bit, so that's kind of helpful. But effectively we get something like this, and it's just kind of a matter of moving these things around a little bit. We can kind of check back and forth with the image a little bit. I think something like that. Go ahead and we'll just kind of get the image out of here as well. Again, for the Y, we're just going to go ahead and use the V side bearings for now. Now, as far as the... we'll go dolly. I guess that's a better word. As far as how far down this goes, I do have something like the P that I can work off of. But I think I would like to have this kind of find its way down into my overshoot here a little bit more. That does kind of mess up the side bearings a little bit, but I think that'll be okay. It is kind of a little bit on the flatter side too, that curves, so I don't know that we got to go much. I don't think we need to use the whole thing. Maybe something like that kind of helps us out a little bit. I actually don't mind that shape going on there. It's actually kind of fun if I go back and look at the original here. So we kind of got a similar vibe going on. Something fun, something kind of different. As far as it goes here, I could maybe take out a little bit and kind of have this taper some. We're not going to go wild with it, but I think maybe that kind of helps. We could even bring this up a little bit, split the difference. So if I did have the scan there, that probably gets a little bit more true to the scan. But I think something like that works okay for the lowercase. And then to wrap up the episode, we might as well just go ahead and deal with the uppercase as well. I think we can kind of start getting a lot of these letters done in pairs now, with a couple of exceptions. Now for the uppercase, we'll get this in here. If we lock this into place, we will grab a V, and we'll grab the I. So this one's going to be really easy because it's just a matter of making it a little bit shorter. For the V, I think I may just go ahead and make a mess of that for a little bit, and then hopefully we can kind of get this to a place where it looks good. So we'll take the whole thing, we'll kind of get this maybe as positioned as well as we can. This is going to be a little bit narrower there, which is totally fine. And then it's just kind of a matter of managing this intersection here. So I guess we got to do a little bit of traffic management, if you will. I think we can kind of pull those down. Interestingly, that actually kind of worked out pretty well. Maybe move that over a touch. And actually my intuition seems kind of good on that, because that seems how the scan was. But if we go back, throw the V on each side there, and maybe type out something like daily, or yak. Well, can't do yak. Yarn. The tough part is that the Y is always going to kind of stand out on its own at the beginning of it. Yeah, and I suppose cyan, that could be a good word. As a graphic designer, that probably should have been the first one to come to mind, but I think that's okay. And then basically what we're looking at here is, you know, how do these feel in terms of width? So that's 65. That does kind of match the H, narrow a little bit, and 68. Maybe we give this a little bit more, so that kind of feels a little bit more even. I think that could be okay. But again, for now, I think this could be serviceable, and as we kind of start getting more into the proofing process, I think with this we are going to have a good amount of tweaking and adjusting, especially as we start going back and forth, you know, between like InDesign or something like that, or some sort of proofing software. You know, once we start seeing this in larger and larger areas of text, and especially as we get out of the text rendering in Glyphs and into kind of final programs like design software or internet browsers, I think that might kind of help dictate some of the choices that I'm making with the weight as well, and kind of how this is all sorted out. So I think with that we will go ahead and leave it there. So hopefully you found this helpful. You know, like I said, I think the last episode I had mentioned we're kind of aiming for at least a couple more episodes on letters here. But the good news is, you know, now we're kind of getting into things where I can kind of move a little bit quicker. So you'll notice I did leave the K and the X alone for the next episode, but I think there's actually a lot of common DNA between those two letters in this one, so we can kind of get those two you know, taken care of in short order. Obviously the Z is its own kind of special case, but you know, not too terrible. For those of you who are looking for me to draw a double story lowercase a or G or the S, I do apologize that I'm kind of leaving those off till the last episode. It really wasn't by choice so much as it was just kind of how this shook out. But truth be told, as I've been designing typefaces, I've discovered I've kind of been leaving those towards the end anyway. Not because they're difficult. I actually do enjoy drawing them, believe it or not, but you know, based on the control character sets, especially when you've got things like a capo or a cap H, lowercase n, lowercase o, there's really just not much there that that is going to help me draw an S very quickly, especially when I can use those characters and get to other letter forms a lot quicker with a lot less work. So that is kind of how it shook out. But I suppose if you're watching this, you know, later on after kind of these initial episodes have been, put out on a weekly basis, then you can just click over to the next episode and take a look at it. But I would say overall I'm pretty happy with this. I think one of the challenges with a low contrast typeface is just kind of keeping that weight in check and making sure that either technically or visually it's kind of staying on point. One of the perks of doing a revival typeface, whether it's record Gothic or, you know, even something else that has caught your eye, I think you learn a lot about the process. And you know, even though a typeface might be 50, 100, 200 years old, there's, I think, a lot of lessons that still apply to modern type design today. So, you know, it was imposed on me when I started Type West that revival typefaces are a great place to start. I know when I started this channel I was doing a lot more original typeface design, but I really have kind of gone all in on the idea that this is a great place to start. So if you don't know where to start, obviously there's a lot of really great places online that you can take a look at. You know, and even if it's just for your own personal enjoyment, you know, you might find a few letters or whatever that you catches your eye and you can go and trace them. You know, as long as you're not selling it or, you know, doing anything nefarious with it. I think that's perfectly okay if you're in a learning environment, of course. But with that said, I think we'll leave it here. And as always, if you found this video helpful, be sure to go ahead and hit those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. If you have any comments, the comment section is always open on all of these videos. It's kind of fun to see, you know, what other people are seeing on this. If you've got any kind of advice or something that maybe I have missed as I'm drawing these letters, or if you're working on something yourself, it's always fun to hear you know, how people are using these videos as well. So the comment section is always open for stuff like that. And so with all that said, thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next episode.